Have you heard of Ilia Topuria? I bet you did, but if you did not, Ilia is currently a featherweight champion claiming the title after defeating Alexander Volkanovski. After the Volkanovski fight, Ilia successfully defended his title, knocking out the legend Max Holloway. While some thought there was no chance for the young Georgian to win, and that Max would avenge Volkanovski, they made a big mistake because he not only defended the belt and the title of Undisputed, but also became the first ever to knock out Max Holloway, who fought over a decade in UFC, fighting all the legends of the organization and earning the title of the best boxer in UFC. But then someone younger and more hungry came to the scene and defeated him in his own game. Today we talk about the evolution of pure boxing into mixed martial arts, the dangerous and unique style of Ilia El Matador Topuria. First breakdown of his style. Like we said, Ilia primarily uses boxing as his main fighting style. While we know that, you probably did not know that Ilia is a black belt in BJJ, making him a submission expert. While not showing so much of his grappling skills in UFC, we have seen some of his amazing takedown defense and how good he sprawls. We see in a couple of fights, like the Bryce Mitchell fight, Topuria dominates him in stand-up, so Mitchell tried to take the fight to the ground. In the first round, Mitchell nearly finished, but unfortunately it was the end of the first round. But Topuria's ground game is as good as his stand-up, showing it by defending nearly every takedown. Still, Mitchell gave everything he had because in stand-up, he would get knocked out. Next scene, Mitchell tries again to take him down, and Topuria sprawls, takes underhook and overhook, slams him on the floor, and gets him in side control. Topuria applied chest-to-chest pressure and landed some ground-and-pound strikes, softening Mitchell and making it harder for him to defend the eventual submission. Topuria used his shoulder and body weight to pin Mitchell's arm against his neck. This is crucial in an arm triangle, as it compresses one side of the carotid artery. After trapping the arm, Topuria moved from side control towards mount and began transitioning to the opposite side. With the arm trapped, and Topuria's weight pressing down on Mitchell's neck, the choke became inescapable. The combination of Topuria's squeeze and positional dominance forced Mitchell to tap out. Now let's talk about stand-up. Topuria is very patient, has great timing, and never rushes, which is debatably the most important thing in boxing and in MMA. He also uses jabs to measure distance and excels at closing the distance quickly, forcing his opponents into uncomfortable positions, often backing them up against the cage. His forward pressure limits their movement and options. Topuria uses subtle feints and lateral movement to manipulate his opponent's reactions, creating openings for his strikes or takedowns. His ability to switch between striking and grappling keeps opponents guessing. The constant threat of a takedown disrupts their rhythm and allows him to dictate the range. He uses targeted strikes like leg kicks or body shots to disrupt his opponent's base and break their rhythm. Topuria explodes into range with powerful combinations, leaving his opponents little time to react. He also has heavy hands and uses crisp, technical boxing to inflict damage. His hooks and overhand punches are especially dangerous. Topuria has sharp reflexes, allowing him to capitalize on his opponent's mistakes with precise counterpunches. Ilia Topuria's fighting style is built around applying constant pressure, which forces his opponents to fight on the back foot, leaving them in a defensive mindset. Constant forward pressure not only tests the physical endurance of his opponents, but also wears them down mentally. Fighting off your back foot for extended periods can lead to mistakes, which Topuria capitalizes on with his quick reflexes and finishing instinct. The fight where Topuria's boxing excels is with Josh Emmett. Emmett, known for his brawler style, meaning he is a heavy puncher, knocking out people with his swinging arms, would be the best showcase of technique versus raw power. One of the most recognizable things about Topuria is his stance. Like we said earlier, Topuria's boxing outclassed everyone in his division. And for someone who uses a boxing stance in MMA and fights with professionals, that is really impressive. For the entire fight, Topuria had his high guard, meaning the 5 rounds he did not get exhausted and kept his hands up. That's due to excellent strength and conditioning, but we will mention that later. He had his fundamental stance and technique the same from the first until the last round, meaning being exhausted did not affect his technique, which is the most important part of the game, being light on his feet, in balance always, and mobile. When Emmett tries to pressure him, he lightly hops out of the danger zone. Even though Topuria is aggressive and applies pressure, he does not fear waiting for his opponent to get tired, especially when he is aggressive like Emmett. The guy is very patient. When he exhausts him, the torture comes. Also, Ilia does not check his body shots by dropping his hands. He just lowers his elbows, not letting Emmett feint him into dropping his hands and landing a KO strike, which he is famous for. Also, Ilia likes to use low kicks. For someone who transitioned from boxing into MMA, that just shows you do not need to learn every single technique to be an excellent fighter. You just need to master one technique. Like Bruce Lee said, I fear not the man who has practiced 10,000 kicks once, but I fear the man who has practiced one kick 10,000 times. Of course, jabs won Topuria this fight. He used them so precisely to measure distance, to counter, and to set up his combos. That's why jabs are the most important strikes in this sport. The timing he had to respond to Emmett's strikes, Topuria waits for Emmett to throw a punch, then Ilia trades with him and moves out of the way. This fight just shows how much he mastered the art of counterpunching. Topuria's training. Now let's talk about how to get his style, train like him, and even learn something from him to add to your style. Striking training. As we said earlier, Ilia is a master of boxing. In that case, if you are training MMA or kickboxing, you will need to focus on your boxing skills. If you don't have separate training sessions in your MMA gym for just boxing, I recommend you go to a boxing gym for a month to really focus on your hands. But if you don't have the money or a gym nearby, you can always do it at home. The most important thing is perfect technique. Master your jabs, crosses, uppercuts, and hooks. Start with the basics, because if you want to fight like Topuria, you need to do the boring stuff. His technique is perfect. Also, you should not neglect your defense and footwork. Maybe even more important than offense is defense. Master slips, rolls, parries, and blocks. Grappling. If you want to be a well-rounded fighter like Topuria, you will need to master grappling too. First, start with sprawls. We did not see him grapple too much, but if you want to have his style, you can't neglect wrestling and BJJ. If you train MMA, most of your training is probably already focused on grappling. If you don't train, pay for 1 month at some BJJ dojo and really focus on getting better. You may even find you like it more than you expected. Strength and conditioning. Some of Topuria's strength and conditioning drills focus on building massive endurance for that high guard. The best drills are shadow boxing with resistance bands or dumbbells. These will not only make your shoulders endure longer, but also make you punch faster. You will also need to develop excellent explosiveness. If you've seen his KOs, you know what I am talking about. Some drills that develop KO power are clapping push-ups, landmine presses, and sledgehammer tire slams. To endure the whole fight without gassing out, you will need a good gas tank. This means you need to build both aerobic and anaerobic cardio. In simplest terms, aerobic cardio is for longer periods of low-intensity work, and anaerobic cardio is for short bursts of high intensity. You can develop aerobic cardio by jogging or using an air bike, and anaerobic cardio by doing sprints. Have you ever thought about learning a martial art like boxing, but felt held back by a lack of time or nerves over starting with no skills, or even the fear of getting hurt? Or, if you already have some boxing experience, would you like to build a physique designed to make you faster, more explosive, and powerful with endurance that's tailored to striking? Imagine building a body that's not only visually impressive, but also complements your boxing skills. With a focus on nutrition for recovery, boosting testosterone, maximizing energy, and overall health, backed by my extensive study of reaching the highest natural testosterone levels possible, this program gives you everything you need and more. Take control, train like a predator, and unleash your full potential. Be the tiger.